Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. The United States is making some moves that is raising alarm bells all across with the movement of B52 bombers and B2 Spirit bombers to the region. More moves coming from the United States, such as removing embassy staff. Reports that they're removing more embassy staff as well from countries in the Gulf states. All of that indicating that the United States might be participating in this war against Iran. However, on the other hand, there are worrying signs coming from within Israel, as in worrying for them because of the delay that's coming from the United States. Reports today confirming that Israel doesn't have 2 weeks to wait. Threats to attack the Fordo nuclear facility that they've been talking about for a very long time now without the United States participation, despite the fact that Israel has no capability to severely affect the Fordo nuclear facility. As a matter of fact, there have been many suspicions and doubts about the possibility that the United States can even harm the Fordo facilities, even with their GBU 57s that will be landing from their heavy bombers, primarily the B2 Spirit. We're going to talk all about that with the new ultimatums coming now from Iran's allies, especially Yemen, with a new statement about the United States participating, or the potential of a United States participation, and what that would mean, and the preparedness of Yemen for a potential preemptive strike coming from the United States. Things are becoming more tense, especially with the people who were close to Donald Trump at one point. Steve Bannon, for example, who was in his previous administration in his first term, now saying that he has substantial evidence that the United States will be participating. And if it's not this weekend, it's going to be next weekend. Some people are very confident that the United States will be participating, but we're going to go through all of that in this live stream, and other details, of course, will cover the majority of the updates. Let's begin with this recent attack that came from Iran against Israel today. Iran targeted the area of Bisan, or Beit Shan, they call it in Hebrew, in northern occupied Palestine, with a drone. Here's one video of this attack. We can see clearly, no interceptions, no nothing. An Iranian drone coming from the sky, bam, landing, causing this massive explosion in the location. This attack is different than previous attacks that came from Iran, by the way, in how it was carried out, and in the way that it targeted a specific civilian house, or what is appearing to be a civilian house from this explosion. And there were, of course, more images being published about the damage. There was a lot of damage to this area, and I'll share the images with you. Now, the reason that it's suspicious, here's the damage for you, by the way. The reason that it's suspicious is the fact that this drone from Iran landed directly inside of that house. So Iran is targeting someone. Why? Because their Shahid drones, they are accurate drones. At the end of the day, Iran, if they want to target a house, they will target us. As a matter of fact, both Yemen and Lebanon, as in the resistance in these countries, managed to target bases of the Israeli army and certain locations, civilian locations used by Israeli security and intelligence, by landing a drone inside of a window. It was penetrating through a window. Pinpoint accuracy for any targeted assassinations, or to increase the level of damage. As a matter of fact, Hezbollah, they attempted to take Benjamin Netanyahu in his house when they took one of their drones to his window. Now Netanyahu, he had, extra protection, bulletproof, explosion-proof glass, and all of that. It didn't work here, though. So who was this guy? Who did Iran target exactly? See, Iran, they don't really say much. They say we targeted the senior figure in the Israeli Mossad, so we targeted senior figure in the Israeli army or what have you, but they don't really specify names too much. Now, that means they have information. They have information where these people live. And it's not just Israel that can carry out targeted assassinations inside of Iran. Iran can carry out targeted assassinations inside of Israel. As a matter of fact, Israel is confirming that now. How? Well, we had one report in one of the Israeli mainstream media outlets that belongs to the Israeli Ma'ariv, confirming that a former Mossad agent was hit by one of the missiles coming from Iran. Gad Shimron and his partner actress Tali Omer were in the emergency room and the residential tower was hit by the Iranian missile barrage. They are saying this as a missile barrage, not a targeted assassination, by the way, but whether it's a missile barrage or a targeted assassination in a house with Mossad or ex-Mossad, as they're saying, in this report, some things could be accurate, some things could not be accurate at the end of the day. Clearly, Iran has targets inside of Israel, and they are able to conduct targeted assassinations should they wish. Now, the United States is having some moves, flight radar monitoring movements of B-52 bombers towards the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia base as well, other bases in the region too, reports about suspicious movements inside some of its bases in the region, evacuating the strategic air force from certain bases that the United States has in the Gulf. Does that mean that they're going to be participating? Or does it mean that they're just, is it just a show? What are they doing exactly? Well, let's try and understand how things are between the Israelis and the Americans to establish. First and foremost, let's remember how it began. Whether it's a 3, 4, or 5D chess game, that's really none of our business. We deal with what we're given. I know certain things can happen in the background, but we deal with what we have and we try and analyze them. The United States outright didn't give Israel a green light to carry out a strike against Iran. The United States told Israel, we're not going to participate with you if you attack Iran. That's not just the current establishment in the United States and the current administration. It was previous administrations too. It was the Bush administration. It was the Obama administration. It was the previous Trump era and the Biden administration too. That's not something bizarre. Like, that's the norm of the United States administration, because they know that Iran has capabilities. Iran is no Afghanistan or Iraq. They've been preparing for a very long time, and they're proving time after time that they can hurt Israel really badly. Now, Netanyahu and the Israeli officials, they're saying that they're in contact with the Americans day after day. But it appears that these conversations, at least according to Israeli media, and at the end of the day, again, what's leaked in the media and what's published in the media is just the tip of the iceberg, really, of what really happens. They're saying in the Israeli media that the talks between them and the Americans are actually becoming more intense now. They're not getting any smoother. How? So we had one of these reports here in the Israeli Ma'ariv speaking about the recent talks between Israel and the United States. High alert on the way to the Holy Grail. Israel sends an unprecedented message to the U.S. In a phone call with American officials, Israeli officials said that they would be able to operate at the Fordo site in Iran even before Trump's deadline expires in 2 weeks. The conversation including the Prime Minister, the Chief of Staff, and the Minister of Defense. Now, according to this report here, they're saying that Israel told the Americans, firstly, it's too long. 2 weeks is too long. They showed their discontent with the fact that Trump is saying, 2 weeks, it's way too long for us. And as a matter of fact, we can see that it's too long for Israel anyway. They're getting beaten and smacked every few hours by Iran, by the way, with Benjamin Netanyahu losing that fake glory of the first moment of attack after conducting acts of terror inside of Iran and having this barbaric aggression against Iran. Now they're saying, well, we can attack Fordo on our own. But how can you attack Fordo on your own? You don't have the bombers, you don't have the missiles to attack Fordo. And even if you do have them, that's not necessarily going to affect anything. But anyway, they're saying that. And in this report as well, they're saying that the sources familiar with the matter, by the way, are saying that they're describing the calls that are happening between the two parties as tense. It was a tense phone call, according to them, this recent conversation between the Israelis and the Americans. And the talks and the negotiations between the Americans and the Israelis are getting more and more tense as time goes by. So Trump, firstly, we may not. All of this talk, then talking about 2 weeks, all of a sudden, certain movements happening, undeniably. But according to this report, the Israelis are showing their discontent with the Americans. They're saying that 2 weeks is too much. We do want to attack Fordo, but 2 weeks is too much. We don't have 2 weeks, and we need to carry out an operation as soon as possible. Now, of course, from an Israeli perspective, they were waiting on the relevant bombs, or the use the United States needs to lend them, either the B2 or the B52, to land such heavy missiles. But it's not happening yet. So, well, there's something happening that's not necessarily to the Israelis' liking. In the meantime, the Israeli IDF chief of staff is asking the Israeli population to prepare for a long-term war. IDF chief of staff warns Israelis must brace for a long war against Iran. In an article that was published in the Times of Israel, during which there was a lot of course propaganda claiming that Iran has just a couple of thousands of missiles and that Israel destroyed like half of them. All garbage propaganda. At the end of the day, Iran has a huge number of missile reports that they have even millions of drones. They manufacture and sell them, and they have cities, even countries under Iran itself. But he has to come up with some reassurance for the population, of course, so that they can reassure them. However, that's not very effective with the level of infiltration Iran has in Israel, and with the level of capability, and with the huge percentage of the Israeli failure intercepting Iranian missiles. He's again trying to reassure the public that, oh, the reports that we're running out of the air defense missiles are not true, but the missiles are landing. It's not convincing the Israeli public. You can reassure them. You can tell them we've heard their capabilities. We heard this and that. We're expanding the freedom of operation inside of the Iranian airspace. And you can say all of that nonsense, but at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. And the Iranians, they're not just talking, they're actually releasing information. Today they released another video of them targeting Israel with the recent missiles that they landed inside of the occupied territories in the past couple of days. So they've shown us the missiles that they launched in the morning. They showed us the missiles that they launch in the nighttime. They show us the drones that they launch all across the day, throughout the day. And that's supposedly with Israel having airspace control inside of Iran. What kind of airspace control are you talking about even? When Iran is publishing all of these videos of them launching hypersonic ballistic missiles day and night on Israel. However, what the Israeli IDF chief of staff is saying here is quite important. Why? Because Israel wouldn't want a long-term war with Iran, as in the state. But again, the state is run by a psychopathic lunatic called Netanyahu, who doesn't necessarily do what's good for the state of Israel in general. But seeing as that initial phase of accomplishment, you know, we targeted senior figures in Iran and we landed this and we targeted several nuclear sites and what have you, is gone now, is fading away. The Iranian response is crushing any sort of accomplishment that Israel has carried out, and even if they still have certain targeted assassinations, or if, for example, they'll target a police station or what have you, through their long arm inside of Iran, that Iran is slowly but surely taking down one by one, that's not gonna help you recover from the strategic blows that you're getting from Iran. Number one, Iran has already hit so many of Israel's strategic points. Iran targeted the oil refineries in Haifa that led to stopping the manufacturing and process of oils. It led the company running the location to shut down completely. They targeted the Kiryat, the main hub of command and control inside of Israel that includes the political echelon, the military, the intelligence establishments, and the Israeli Navy too, Unit 8200. They targeted the Mossad base, they targeted the Amman base, or the Military Intelligence Directorate. They targeted several Israeli air bases. Israel is resorting to launch some of its flights from other locations, by the way, because of the intensity of attacks coming from Iran, let alone the other strategic locations like the gas exploration field in Leviathan and off the shores of the northern part of Palestine. These blows are huge. The Rafael factory, the core of Israel's military industrial complex. People try and avoid telling you these things because they want to undermine the huge Iranian accomplishment when it comes to Israel. Therefore, the Israelis would either want to try and get something bigger in hope that the United States would participate, or eventually drag the United States either through a huge false flag operation, something similar to the USS Liberty or any other attacks that they try to blame on other people and other parties too. They would blame on Iran. Unfortunately for them, people are awake now and they're monitoring, and people are already warning from a false flag, by the way. But that doesn't state that the United States would not participate, because guess what? The United States did participate, especially in the attack against Yemen, alongside the participation in relation to supporting Israel in terms of arms and shipments, which leads me to the second point that I wanted to talk to you about. Iran just warned that they will be targeting all military aid shipments bound to Israel. From an Iranian perspective, anyone who is supporting Israel now will be targeted as a legitimate target. This is another part of the Iranian escalation coming not just against the attacks or as a retaliation to the attacks that are coming from Israel inside of Iran, but also shipments too. Now, we can also understand another thing here. Are there certain delays coming from the United States anyway? And how far can Iran go with targeting these shipments that are coming to the state of Israel? All that we know is that the threat is there. This is going to make the other sides that are supporting Israel, primarily the United States, more hesitant in the support and in sending Israel, more military equipment, because from an Iranian perspective, now they are a legitimate target, and this could escalate things even further. Moving on to the next thing. The Iranians are meeting with some European leaders in Geneva to talk about the nuclear project, and they're reiterating that we will not stop enriching uranium and we will not go into negotiations with the United States unless there's an unconditional cessation of hostilities coming from Israel, with guarantees and reassurances for the future that they won't come with any more adventures against Iran. And not just that, now Iran is saying, with a recent statement from the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, that the nuclear activity will not stop under any circumstance, any type of negotiation that they have with Europe or with the United States, to anyone else on earth, the nuclear activity will not stop. That's coming from Pezeshkian, that came from the foreign minister, that came from the supreme leader, and that came from all of their. Guess what? Good. As a matter of fact, more and more people are now saying this proves that Iran should actually have a nuclear bomb, because the countries who are arrogant enough to try and ask Iran not to have a nuclear bomb are the biggest criminals in the world who have nuclear bombs and have used them against innocent civilians. The whole thing is a circus. It's a circus of hypocrisy. The only country that hasn't signed to the conventions in relation to the nuclear bombs and weapons is Israel, that has almost 90, if not more, nuclear warheads. Why don't you speak about them? You're talking about a terror state holding nuclear bombs. Does that not worry you? Or do you not care about the lives of Arabs and Muslims in the region? Why the double standards? Why the hypocrisy? Why is it only Iran that can't have a nuclear bomb, but you shut your hypocrite mouths when it comes to Israel and its nuclear campaign that has been revealed and published by Israel since the 90s? Or kidnapped, by the way, Vanoun, he was kidnapped from London for revealing the actual nuclear bomb project of Israel. What kind of hypocrisy is this? This proves time after time that no, you actually need to have such a high level of deterrence that you would make your arrogant enemies not even think for 1 second of attacking you. Now, they're not applying pressure on Israel. Well, where is the pressure on Israel? They've been committing a genocide. It's as if nothing is happening. By the way, children are butchered every day in Gaza. Today, limbs chopped off. As if these should be normal scenes. Where's your humanity, you hypocrites? Where's your human rights? Where's children's rights? Where's women's rights? None of that exists. Why? Because they are Muslims and because they are Arab, because they're supremacy, because they don't view them as human beings. They share the same values of Israel, yet they have the audacity to go and talk about Iran. So from an Iranian perspective, it appears that the more time goes by, the more they're understanding who they're dealing with. Because previously they were hesitant and they were skeptical. As a matter of fact, before the recent negotiation round, the supreme leader of Iran, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, he said, I don't believe that there's a point in speaking with the Americans. And clearly the man proves time after time his wisdom. A very, very wise man. Why? Because the Americans constantly breach agreements. They are always treacherous and they're hyper-pathological liars. At least the administration was speaking, of course, not the American population, or to generalize anything. Don't get my words wrong here. But repeated American administrations, hyper-pathological liars, constantly treacherous against any agreement, by the way, that they make. And they spent 2 years of very long and intense negotiations and resources and spending time and building trust, all of that to reach an agreement with the Obama administration for Donald Trump to come and rip it to shreds the next day for no reason apart from serving the Zionist lobby that brought him and probably has so many blackmailing things through Epstein and non-Epstein for him to take this abhorrent position to this day. And now he's asking them to, he was the one who approached them to start negotiating. It's like you withdrew from the agreement. But the Iranians, I mean, as usual, they're open. They're open to negotiations. They're open to talk. And they said, you know, we'll give it another chance. And yeah, the Americans didn't give a green light to the Israelis. But one day after, Trump is like acting as if it's us, you know, and Israel will continue. And, you know, I'm not sure if, you know, Khamenei will be killed. Who do you think you are that you can think you can talk to the supreme leader of Iran, who's a religious cleric and a religious authority, as in, we don't know. Who do you think you are? What kind of arrogance is this? What kind of supremacist ugliness are we dealing with here? And it's fine, as if it's fine, you know. They can threaten our leaders. They can threaten leaders of independent nations, threaten to kill them as if it's nothing. Really? Who do you think you are? And Iran is clearly understanding that, especially with these recent statements coming from not only the Iranian President Pezeshkian, but also other leaders in Iran too, including the foreign minister as well, which leads us to Russia. Russia is a very big country involved in all of this. Why? Because they have Russians working in Bushehr. Now, Bushehr, Israel is threatening and the United States threatening too. Russia said, Putin himself said, we're keeping the Russian staff there. We're keeping them there and we expect them to remain protected. As an indirect threat too. Now they made another statement. What is that statement? They said that Pandora's box to open, leading to dangerous escalation if Iran's supreme leader is killed. That came from the spokesman of the Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov. Regime change in Iran is unacceptable. Warns against US speculation on Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's assassination. Russia is clearly here, by the way, taking a position despite the diplomatic tone, by the way. For example, the talk about don't even entertain this before. Then opening up a Pandora's box. What do you mean by opening a Pandora's box? This means, well, you're not really going to expect what's going to come to you if you assassinate him. That also applies on any other idiotic movements that can come from the United States against Iran and its nuclear campaign, whether they directly get involved, whether it's a limited strike, whether they lend Israel the B2s and B52s to target them with the GBU 57s, any scenario on earth. The Russians are telling you, don't be so confident that you would expect what's coming after that. And by the way, that's only Russia. We haven't spoken about anything else. We haven't spoken about Iran's capabilities. Iran is merely playing with Israel, by the way, now. Iran is just toying with Israel, ladies and gentlemen. Don't please. The missiles that they're launching, landing now in Israel and penetrating and intercepting, that's hardly anything. I mean, Iran can destroy Israel in half an hour if they want. But Iran knows that they are open to a much bigger war, that they might be facing a much bigger and much longer war. And they said now, we're ready for war for years. They have been preparing for that for 4 decades. Bring America on, bring millions on. The people will fight them up until the last second and expel them humiliated like the Afghans expelled them. And in the case of Afghanistan, by the way, they were far less capable than the Iranians, by the way. Afghanistan is incomparable to Iran. Yet despite that, the flip-flop turban-wearing guys from Tora Bora expelled not just the United States and NATO after 20 years. And they took billions worth of their weapons, and the Americans just had to kind of tell the veterans and soldiers, yeah, well, you died for nothing, whatever, what the hell. We were just joking, that we're going to go for women's rights and to change the regime and implement democracy and whatever. It was just a joke. Didn't really work well. So, oops. Yeah. Whatever happens, happens. That's not going to happen in Iran. Iran is prepared for a long-term war. That will be a war, even if you're going to talk about strategic missiles landing here and there. And they're also prepared for a naval war, by the way. We haven't even got there. We haven't even got to the cruise missiles and the land-to-sea missiles and all of that, and sea mines. And you saw the capabilities of Ansarullah against the United States aircraft carriers, expelling 4 of them from the Red Sea. Now just imagine what Iran can do if Ansarullah were able to do that. Imagine what Iran can do to you if you try to participate in a larger war. And again, with all of the doubt and the speculation that some of these missiles that Israel is waiting for, even if the United States tried to attack directly, by the way, would prove to be ineffective. Experts are warning that actually they could be ineffective. Some are saying we're going to have to use like 10 B2s to land repeated blows for 3 minutes straight to try and do something. And then there's a huge warning of, and by the way, that's another thing that's being so underplayed in mainstream media, by the way. Have you noticed how no one is concerned about radiation? No one is concerned in Western mainstream media and in other mainstream media about radiation. What happened to you? Do you even have brains? Or what is it inside your heads over there? Radiation. These are nuclear sites. These are nuclear enrichment sites. You're going to attack them, warning and threatening from such a large-scale disaster against innocent people? Or is it, again, you don't care about the lives of those people because they are of a certain color, certain race, or certain religion, and you've been demonizing them for decades now in your mainstream media and in your Hollywood movies and even in your video games? Is that why? And you expect your population to follow suit? They're the bad guys, the axis of evil. We know very well, very, very well now, who are the axis of evil and who are the great grandfathers and grandmothers of terrorism. They're sitting there with their suits and ties. We can see them very well. Now the threat is being taken seriously, though, and that threat is coming now, and there was another warning coming from none other than Ansarullah in Yemen. The United States just had a deal with them, but now they're publishing a new warning. What's that warning? Well, we had this report here in the Ansarullah website, the official website of the Yemeni movement. Now, they're saying that we will target American ships and warships if they are involved in any aggression against Iran. They also added in this report here, the Yemeni armed forces confirmed that they will target American ships and warships in the Red Sea if the Americans are involved in the attack and aggression against Iran with the Israeli enemy. In a statement issued by them, the armed forces reaffirmed Yemen's principled and firm position in rejecting the Zionist aggression against our brothers in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and any Arab or Islamic country exposed to Zionist aggression, as stated in previous statements. Forces indicated that any American attack and aggression in support of the Israeli enemy against Iran cannot be tolerated within the framework of the goal aimed at enabling the Israeli enemy to control the entire region, because this means confiscating freedom, independence, and dignity of our nation, enslaving it, humiliating it, distorting its identity, occupying its homelands, plundering its wealth, and establishing the equation of the violation of blood, honor, and sanctities and land. The statement pointed out that the battle is the battle of the entire nation, and that the salvation, glory, and victory of the nation lie in the action and jihad or struggle for the sake of God Almighty. Explained that the armed forces are monitoring and observing all movements in the region, including hostile movements against our country, and that with God's help, they will take the necessary legitimate measures to defend the dear country and its proud people. They stress that the dear Yemeni, with its great people, faithful leadership, and a struggling army or Mujahid army, will stand by any Arab or Islamic country exposed to Zionist aggression, or that decides to confront this aggression in self-defense or in support of the Mujahideen and the Palestinian resistance. The armed forces reiterated that they will not abandon our brothers in the Gaza Strip, and that they will not allow the criminal entity supported by the United States to implement their plans in the region. Of course, then they had a statement coming by Yahya Sari', who is the spokesperson of Ansarullah, who stated and reiterated again that they will be standing with every country in the region that decides to go to war with Israel, or if it gets attacked by Israel. This has been a key position from Yemen, and today we saw millions, of Yemenis, as with every Friday, going and protesting against this Israeli Zionist aggression against Iran, alongside the continued genocide in the Gaza Strip. Again, they're still conducting awful, barbaric actions inside of the Gaza Strip, with unbelievable images coming every day. I've been posting on my X account there. Unbelievable images still day after day coming from the Gaza Strip against infants, against babies. But that's the Israelis for you. Cowards who take it out on innocent people. But when they're faced with a genuine army, when they're faced with a real army, they hide like rats in tunnels. They have no bravery. They have no guts. People were following tanks yesterday with the Palestinian resistance. I published a video of 2 or 3 Palestinian resistance fighters who were following up on a previous attack and did not have the relevant weapons to target them, trying to actually go with their bare hands and open a tank. And the tank was fleeing, probably with lots of full diapers from the people inside it, shitting themselves from how scared they are from the Palestinian resistance. That's the Israeli army for you, the TikTok diaper army. They're nothing when they're facing the real Palestinian resistance fighters or any other army that even has a resemblance of, equal force to fight them. They are unable to do anything with them. And now with Iran, they're trying to the best of their abilities to drag the United States into another escalation with Iran. And again, the reports that are coming are showing that, well, there are certain moves, but again, from an Israeli perspective, there are worries as well, because the United States is telling them, well, 2 weeks, that's not really working well. The Israelis are telling them we don't have 2 weeks. Then they're saying we might attack Fordo on our own. More serious or tense conversations happening between them. Today, Israeli media outlets were saying that if the United States doesn't participate and Iran decides to retaliate with all of its force, then we might get stuck in a very, very long war. And that's exactly what the Israeli IDF spokesperson was saying today, an IDF chief of staff, who was saying that you need to brace yourself for a long-term war. Previously, Israel was saying we're going to get stuck in a campaign for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. Now, all of a sudden, they're telling us, oh, it might be long. We know for sure that the Israeli state of emergency is up to the 30th of June. That's for sure. The 30th of June is 9 days. If Israel starts to extend that further, and if the IDF chief of staff saying we're stuck in a long-term war here, start to expect that there are less likelihoods of a participation from the United States, despite the fact that there could be a possibility of a participation at any given moment, by the way. So the two options are indeed there. But let me tell you something. For people who are thinking that, like, the United States will inevitably go in, of course, the United States is a participant in the genocide. They are the ones who protected Israel. But the United States never at any point have they sent their army officially to go and fight for Israel since the 7th of October in what Israel described as the biggest threat to its existence in history. That says something. What does that say? That says that the United States is prepared for the day after Israel. Let's not kid ourselves. The American intelligence, they've been publishing reports since the 2010s about the prospect of Israel. That's it being over. Do you think that they're not prepared? Of course they're prepared. The Americans know that very well, especially those who are involved in the intelligence and with the reality of things. They know that Israel as a country might collapse, and they're prepared for that scenario. And guess what? Because they're prepared for that scenario, we still have a problem even after Israel collapses, because the United States will try and do something else that's very corrupt and rotten, again, alongside its allies who created this supremacist entity of terror in the heart of Palestine. So they might tell them, well, go ahead. You wanted a war with Iran. You did not ask for you didn't accept the fact that we told you there is no green light. You wanted to go on your own accord. To hell with you. Go and rot in hell if you wanted to go. That's the actual thing that the United States should be doing. You want to go, you want to do, leave them alone. For heaven's sake, just leave them. If you left them, everything would have been over from a very long time ago, by the way. Now, of course, there's the involvement of the MIC and the profiteering and all of that. And all these things are very considerable and very important, by the way. The United States, at the end of the day, is a corporation. However, all of this is demolishing the United States and its image and some of its partnerships and Europe and all of that. Especially with the more hostile tone that came from the Trump administration towards traditional allies, what would be considered generally as blood brothers of the United States. So all options are indeed on the table. That is undeniable. Israel is preparing for a long-term war. The United States made certain moves that can be interpreted as an immediate preparation to participate, in which case they will be opening a Pandora's box, like the Russians said, and Iran still has many surprises to come. Iran hasn't used any, just like a fraction of what they can actually do at the end of the day. So all options are on the table, and of course the days that are coming will also show us exactly what's to come and where things are going. And that's it for this live stream. These were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about. Thank you so much again for tuning in for another live stream. I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow at a similar time. If there are any significant events happening during the morning, I'll have another video as well. And from the night's perspective, the live stream, I will also have another live stream for you at a similar time. In the meantime, again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for everyone who participated in the chat, and for everyone who sent supers, much appreciated. And I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.